In the shadows of international diplomacy and amidst the constant hum of military readiness, a storm has been quietly brewing for decades. It is a conflict shaped not just by borders or ideology, but by legacy, deterrence, and calculated risk. And now that storm has erupted into a bold question that is shaking the geopolitical world. Why is Israel, one of the most technologically advanced military powers in the world, unable to fully stop Iran's attacks? This isn't just a headline, it's a puzzle steeped in history, strategy, and a clash of regional ambitions that spans continents and decades. To understand this complex situation, we need to dig deeper than recent news footage of drones, missiles, or airstrikes. We need to peel back the layers, political, historical, and military, that have brought two of the Middle East's most influential powers into an ever-escalating shadow war. This is not just a fight between two countries. It's a proxy-laced, intelligence-heavy, multi-theater confrontation that involves the world's biggest players, from Washington to Moscow, from Beirut to Tel Aviv. Let's begin by understanding the roots. Iran and Israel were once not enemies. In fact, prior to the 1979 Iranian Revolution, Israel and the Shah of Iran maintained relatively friendly ties. But that changed dramatically when the Islamic Republic was born out of revolution, and with it came a new ideological doctrine that saw Israel not as a potential partner, but as an existential adversary. Iran began to frame itself as the leader of the resistance against the West and its regional allies, with Israel being its primary target. Since then, Iran has built an entire strategy around indirect warfare. Unlike traditional military campaigns, Iran rarely launches full-scale direct assaults on Israel. Instead, it employs what analysts call asymmetric warfare, supporting proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon, Islamic Jihad and Hamas in Gaza, and various militias in Syria and Iraq. These groups act as arms of Iran's regional strategy, providing Tehran plausible deniability and strategic depth while still applying pressure on Israel. Now here's the critical part. Israel's military is arguably the most advanced in the region. Its Iron Dome system is world-renowned. Its intelligence agency, Mossad, is feared. Its cyber capabilities are sophisticated. And yet, even with all this, Iran's attacks, both directly and through proxies, continue. Why? Because modern warfare isn't just about superior firepower. It's about layered strategies, political constraints, public opinion, and international law. Take Hezbollah, for instance. Based in Lebanon and heavily armed by Iran, Hezbollah has tens of thousands of rockets aimed at Israel. If Israel were to launch a full preemptive war against Hezbollah to neutralize that threat, it would risk dragging Lebanon into a full-scale war, inflaming the Arab world, and possibly provoking Iranian retaliation across multiple fronts. It's a game of chess, not checkers. Then there's the geography. Iran is over 1,000 kilometers away from Israel. This distance gives Iran strategic room to operate. Iran doesn't need to send conventional armies to attack Israel. It uses drones, cyber attacks, and regional allies. Many of these attacks are low-scale but persistent, forcing Israel to be in a constant state of high alert without ever knowing exactly where the next attack will come from. This wears down even the most well-equipped nation. And yet, Israel responds, often powerfully. Covert operations inside Iran, mysterious explosions at nuclear facilities, assassinations of top Iranian scientists, airstrikes in Syria targeting weapons convoys bound for Hezbollah. These actions are impressive in their precision and intelligence, but they're limited in scope. Why? Because Israel must balance its responses against the risk of provoking all-out war. For instance, when Israel bombed Iranian targets in Syria, it was sending a message. But if it were to bomb Iranian territory directly and openly, it could cross a line that leads to massive retaliation, not just from Iran, but from a coalition of Iran-backed forces across the region. International politics also play a key role. The United States, Israel's strongest ally, often advises caution. While Washington backs Israel's right to self-defense, it also fears that an escalated conflict could disrupt oil supplies, destabilize already fragile Middle Eastern states, and drag American forces back into a direct regional war. Moreover, Iran has mastered the art of operating in the gray zone, between war and peace. Cyber attacks, maritime sabotage, drone incursions. These are difficult to respond to with traditional military power. If an Iranian drone is launched from Iraq by a proxy group, does Israel strike Iraq? If an Israeli ship is hit in the Gulf by a mine, does Israel bomb Tehran? The ambiguity works in Iran's favor. It frustrates Israel's ability to respond decisively. And then there's public perception. Israel, being a democracy, is accountable to its public. Every conflict brings with it not just military risks, but also political consequences. Civilian casualties, rising defense budgets, and domestic protests all affect how freely the Israeli government can act. Iran, in contrast, is an authoritarian regime with tight control over media and dissent. It can absorb and ignore public backlash in ways Israel cannot. In recent years, we've also seen Iran expand its technological capabilities. Its drone program has grown significantly, and its missiles are more accurate than ever. These tools, combined with Iran's regional alliances, allow it to strike indirectly, with deadly effect. And often, these attacks are designed not necessarily to destroy, but to test Israeli defenses, probe vulnerabilities, and maintain pressure. In short, Iran doesn't need to win a war. It just needs to keep Israel off balance. And that's exactly what it's been doing. So, why can't Israel simply stop Iran's attacks? Because stopping isn't so simple. It would require not just defeating Iranian proxies across multiple countries, but also directly confronting Iran itself, a move that could ignite a massive regional war, involve global powers, and lead to unprecedented destruction. Israel is caught in a strategic paradox. Act too forcefully, and it risks full-scale war. Act too cautiously, and it appears vulnerable. It's not about lacking power, it's about calculating risk. And that is what makes this confrontation so enduring and so dangerous. Now let's move into the second half of this complex and high-stakes narrative, the ongoing dynamics, recent escalations, and the evolving balance of power that keep this conflict simmering just below the boiling point. In April 2024, for the first time in decades, Iran launched a direct aerial attack on Israeli territory, using a combination of drones and ballistic missiles. While most of the threats were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome and the Arrow defense systems, the symbolic weight of that attack was staggering. This wasn't just another proxy maneuver. This was Tehran openly signaling that it's ready to raise the stakes. And Israel, despite intercepting much of the barrage, was forced to reassess the limits of its deterrence. The big question everyone asked after that: why didn't Israel retaliate more aggressively? The answer, once again, lies in strategy, not weakness. Israel knew that a disproportionate response would not only escalate the conflict, but could also backfire diplomatically. At the time, international attention was sharply focused on Ukraine, China's regional moves, and rising tensions in the Red Sea. Israel's leadership realized that any retaliatory strike on Iranian soil could draw global criticism, destabilize its fragile ties with Gulf nations, and risk pushing the US into an unwanted regional showdown. So, instead of striking big and loud, Israel went back to what it does best: covert operations, strategic precision, and diplomacy backed by credible threat. Behind the scenes, Israel's defense establishment began ramping up cyber efforts and intelligence coordination with regional partners, yes, including some surprising ones. Despite the ideological chasm between Israel and many Arab nations, mutual fear of Iran has pushed Israel into quiet cooperation with countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt. This informal alliance is sometimes referred to as the Shadow Coalition. These countries, while officially critical of Israel on the Palestinian issue, share a common view of Iran as a regional threat. Iran's ambitions to become the dominant power in the Middle East, both militarily and ideologically, threaten the very survival of the monarchies and secular regimes that surround it. As a result, Israeli intelligence and surveillance networks have grown stronger, not just at home but across the region. But even this growing web of alliances hasn't been enough to shut down Iran's influence. That's because Iran doesn't operate from a central battlefield. It operates through networks. Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Shiite militias in Iraq, Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. These are not just allies, they are Iran's forward operating bases. And here's what makes it so difficult for Israel to dismantle this network. Each group is embedded within civilian populations. They use schools, homes, and mosques to store weapons. They launch rockets from neighborhoods, knowing that Israeli retaliation risks civilian casualties, which then fuels international condemnation of Israel. It's not just war, it's information warfare. Every time Israel responds to rocket fire or drone incursions, it must calculate the diplomatic cost of that response. This is especially important when considering its tenuous relationships with Europe and the United Nations, where Israel is often under intense scrutiny. Iran understands this and uses it as a shield, provoking, testing, and retreating behind legal and moral ambiguity. Meanwhile, Iran continues to push forward with its nuclear program. Despite international negotiations, sanctions, and sabotage attempts, Tehran is edging closer to the nuclear threshold, the ability to build a bomb quickly if it chooses to. For Israel, this is a red line. A nuclear-armed Iran isn't just a military threat, it's an existential one. Israeli doctrine has long emphasized preemptive action to prevent such scenarios, as seen in the bombing of Iraq's Osirak reactor in 1981 and Syria's Al-Kibar reactor in 2007. Yet Iran has learned from these past strikes. Its nuclear infrastructure is now deeply buried, spread across multiple locations and heavily fortified. Striking it would require a multi-day operation involving long-range bombers, mid-air refueling, cyber support, and a regional strategy to handle the fallout. And such an attack could very well trigger war on multiple fronts. So, we return to the original question. Why can't Israel stop Iran's attack? Because every decision Israel makes is surrounded by layers of risk, military, political, regional, and global. Iran has mastered the art of avoiding a direct war while maintaining relentless pressure. Its proxies allow it to punch far above its weight. Its cyber tactics create disruption without physical destruction, and its nuclear brinkmanship keeps Israel on edge. In the meantime, Israel focuses on containment rather than conquest. Precision airstrikes, cyber sabotage, diplomatic outreach, and domestic missile defense systems are all designed to manage the threat, not eliminate it entirely. Because eliminating it would mean unleashing a regional war that no one, not even Israel, is ready to handle. And this raises an uncomfortable reality. Even the strongest military can be restrained, not by weakness, but by wisdom. Power in modern warfare is not just about launching missiles, it's about knowing when not to. As we look ahead, the Israeli-Iranian conflict is likely to remain a slow burn rather than a sudden explosion. It will be fought in the shadows, through proxies, through intelligence, and through attrition. The world watches, Diplomats maneuver and generals prepare, but the truth remains. Until one side dramatically changes its strategy or collapses under the weight of its ambition, this dangerous dance will go on. Because in this conflict, victory is elusive and defeat could be catastrophic.